Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of From BA to Broadway. You know who it is. It is me. It is Brennan Stefanik, your host, and I am bringing you your general programming reminders. Folks, every Monday we are here with the main episode. Every Wednesday, Danny and I are bringing you our mini-series in the spotlight. But that's enough about us. Who cares about us? That's not why we are here. Folks, today we are here to chat with the one and only Mr. Justin Albinder. Justin, how's it going, man?
Hey, how you doing? I'm good. Happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you.
Yeah.
Justin, who the heck are you and what do you do?
I'm another white man actor on a podcast right now.
And you know what? We need more of those. That's what the world is saying.
Yeah, man. I am fellow actor, born and raised in New York. I'm from Long Island originally. And I've been around doing the thing for a handful of years that we've been doing this thing. And
you sure have. Rock and roll.
Yeah, man.
Justin, how do we know each other?
We know each other through our good mutual friend, Danny Solly, and Brennan Walters, who those two dudes I grew up on Long Island with.
Yep.
We grew up doing, chorus and theater and stuff together through some of like the Long Island programs and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I've carried through a decade and longer friendship, which is wild.
That is crazy to me.
It is wild. We just went to the engagement party for one of those friends that's in that core group we have. Again, we met these people 10th grade.
Yeah.
And so that was close to 15, 13
Kudos
13
to
years
y'all,
ago.
honestly.
And we're just standing there, like having a good time, looking around, being like, wow, we've been doing this for a long time. We're seeing each other through our milestones and big life events, and it's really special. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's special. Yeah.
How beautiful.
How beautiful.
And then you and I met over a screen doing a good old D&D campaign.
We did.
Yeah.
That's right. Which, going back, we just had a whole conversation about how nerdy we are. My brain is still waking up.
Yeah.
But we did that campaign maybe for about 3 sessions, and it didn't last. It wasn't a good one. And our poor friend Danny, who we were trying to introduce the world of D&D to.
That was also my first campaign.
That was your first campaign?
Yeah.
What did you think?
Listen, my gateway into D&D was Dimension 20, so I was here for the imaginative, silly nature of it all.
And you knew what it could be.
Yeah, it was just tough. It was a tough over the internet kind of thing. It was tough that we were all so far away.
Yeah.
And that is what it is,
Well, here's what I'll say. I'm really glad that Danny is now playing a different campaign, new campaign, and understanding how awesome it can be.
Listen,
and I hope that you get the opportunity to do the same.
I think the future is looking very bright for him and I in that regard.
Good,
I have taken him to see the 20-Sided Tavern recently.
Yeah, I want to see it so bad.
Folks, if any of those words piqued your interest in any which way, I say keep an eye out on our social media page, because there might be something pretty cool coming along the way, but that's neither here nor there right now. But Justin, do you have a degree in theater?
I do have a degree in theater. I have a BFA in acting from Ithaca College.
Specifically acting?
Specifically acting.
Interesting.
Yes.
Do you tend to do more straight plays or musical theater?
I have had a career almost exclusively in musical theater at this point.
Crazy.
And so what I'll say to that is, growing up, I was always someone who prided myself on strong acting abilities, decent singing abilities, and decent movement abilities. And I was like, yeah, but I want to do it all. I'm excited about the kinds of work that's being done in and around New York and whatnot. And I auditioned for all these programs for both musical theater and acting, not entirely sure which degree I wanted, but knowing, and this is pretty integral to my trajectory, is that I wanted to do Jersey Boys. That was like flat line. That was like base level, something I need to do.
Amazing.
And I'm sure this was on your checklist of things to talk about.
Not even necessarily, but I love that for you.
And this is my own fault. I did this to myself. And looking back on it, all I can do is laugh. But I made myself the Jersey Boys guy.
Heard.
Like the Jersey Boys kid, which I'm sure for a lot of us that ended up doing Jersey Boys in the last decade, right?
Yeah.
Probably had a similar experience or
for
similar
sure.
desire and dream.
Yeah.
Right? You're a short Mediterranean looking kid, right? That can sing high, and you're like, I can do that and I want to do that.
Yeah.
And so like, it's a pretty, it's a niche thing, but it's also was something I set my eyes on, like just so hardcore. And so throughout all of high school, all of college, that's like where my focus was, right? So any sort of prep I did as an actor, any sort of thinking about or envisioning what I wanted to do was like that was the goal. So I had a very specific goal in mind, which I think paid off and was wonderful. So I was like, I want to do that musical, but also, you know, maybe I'll be a guy that like is an actor and doesn't do musical theater because I'm not good enough, but also can do Jersey Boys. Which, looking back into the thought of that is just ludicrous.
Exactly. Oh my God.
So, you know, I auditioned for several programs and got into some musical theater and some acting. And the place that I really wanted to go to was Ithaca College. My father went there for music ed. My sister ended up going there for music ed. And my mom's brother, my uncle, had gone there for acting before there was even a musical theater program.
Gotcha.
And it was one of the first schools I visited. I was just so excited about it. And I loved it and I wanted to be there. The energy was wonderful. The environment was great. I was all about it.
Yeah.
And they did not accept me for musical theater, but offered me a role in the acting track, which then I was then choosing between that and another school that was offering me a musical theater thing. And I went through this whole dilemma of like, well, where do I want to be? What's going to be more important to me? And ultimately I chose Ithaca College because that's where I wanted to go. However, I spent many years there feeling like I had, you know, a chip on my shoulder, I guess.
Gotcha.
Or that like I had to do extra work to prove myself that I was worthy of being on the same level as my musical theater peers. And I have a buddy actually who is currently in 20-Sided Tavern.
Oh, amazing.
Him and I would kind of, you know, commiserate on how we felt a little slighted, how we felt at a little bit of a disadvantage. And listen, it's natural to feel that when something has something you want, and like that's life, right? And you don't have it. But I learned a valuable lesson from that experience being there, which is that if you want something, you got to make it happen. You have to advocate for yourself. And so I did a lot of work to achieve somewhat of a musical, quote unquote, musical theater education while I was not entitled to that.
Understood.
You know what I mean? And in a way, I felt that I didn't take anything for granted.
Yep.
And to no disrespect to my wonderful peers that I went to school with, who I adore, and I had a really great experience with them. You know, I think if you were handed that stuff, it was really easy to, as we were speaking about before this podcast, there's always something to complain about. You know, it's easy for them to complain or say, you know, like, oh, well, I don't want to do this. Oh, this is annoying. You know, meanwhile, I was standing on the sidelines going, I wish I got that.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that. You know, I wish I was given that homework assignment or something like that.
For sure.
And so I think I just wanted it that much more, became really hungry, and I got that much more excited about it and put in a lot more effort. And so I think by the time I left that program, I was like really prepared to go and have the career or start the career that I wanted to, have the skill set at least, or the tools that I really wanted. So I'm really grateful that I chose the program that I did. We'll talk about that probably in a little bit. That I made the decision that I did in terms of which to do, and that I kind of had this disadvantage. I think it helped me a lot. And I spent a lot of years speaking to future students or people that were choosing, or people that were in similar situations of like, I got accepted to an acting program, but I want to do musical theater. And ultimately I had to be like, all right, guess what? It's not going to matter, A, in a decade from now. Sure. And B, also like fight for what you want, ask for what you want. And here's how I made it happen.
Exactly.
So
rock and roll.
Thank you. Yeah.
So like in terms of the program and stuff and the classes you were taking, were you able to take like music classes, dance classes while you were in the acting program? Was there any form of like ability to overlap in that regard? There
was a little bit. I think I really luckily found this sweet spot in the life of that program, which is now kind of totally changed from what I understand. But at the time, I was kind of in the beginning of what ended up being several students wanting to do a similar thing.
Gotcha.
And so I think myself and my other friend who I spoke about and some other people kind of paved the way for that overlap to begin to happen, which then got immediately shut down.
Great.
Which was that we started asking for the ability to take dance classes. So what they ended up doing was making designated dance classes for acting majors or non-musical theater students. So we were like, all right, we'll take it. You know, it might not be with the teachers that are teaching like the required stuff, but it was still an opportunity to work on that skill.
Yeah.
Great. I was like, great, I'll take it. And then in my senior year, I asked and begged and auditioned to be in some of those musical theater workshop classes, the Dance for the Musical Stage class. I asked to audit things. I asked if I could like come in and sit on classes. And so these musical theater professors would get to know me and say, oh, sure, yeah, I'll take him in my class. Or, yeah, I have an extra spot. Yeah, sure, that can work.
Yeah.
And I think it was a bit of luck and also a bit of asking for what you want that kind of allowed me to do some of that. So yes, there was some overlap.
Interesting. Okay. That's like, I love the education system and the fact that I don't. And it's so interesting that they had the space and teachers to teach you a form of dance class and they couldn't just give you that same class.
Yeah, I mean, like they definitely had a number of slots that they were limited to, and so and it also was scheduled. So like I think a lot of it was if my required acting class was at this certain time, the required musical theater class was also happening at that time. So like there was no world in which I was going to be able to take the other one.
Understood.
But when I could and when there was availability, I absolutely did. And they were willing to let that happen.
Heard.
But I think the infrastructure that they were working within was designed in a way that, kind of kept things separate. Now, I will say, compared to other programs I've heard about, and listen, now we're also almost 10 years out of the college program too. Like,
don't say that.
Don't say that. So sorry. That like things have changed dramatically, and this is not to throw shade or any program under the bus, but like there are other programs that I've heard that really kept their actors and musical theaters actors separate. And at Ithaca, they didn't quite so much. We really did have a cohesive group until there were things where we were very much separated. Yeah. And that's where it started to feel icky. And that's where, you'd go, oh gosh, why am I feeling like a second-class citizen or something? Yeah. Which is so ridiculously privileged to say when you're talking about going to school for the arts. But,
yes,
I think within that microcosm, there was that world to feel that way. So.
And no, it's very much like, yes, it feels weird to complain about it because like you have the opportunity, but you are also paying for this opportunity. It is a pay to play situation.
Yes, I am.
And we are still paying for that opportunity that we had. And yet
I'll just say, like, I was listening to your episode with Ryan Scott Oliver and everything he had to say about students or future students that are choosing to go into this industry, that are choosing to go into college.
Yeah.
I'm sitting right now on $100,000 worth of private loans that I have been paying for 7 years and still will be paying for 15, 20 years to come.
Yeah.
At a rate that is so high for my day-to-day life, on a monthly basis, that is insane. And I don't regret going to school.
Yeah.
I don't regret my time there. But if I were to go back and do it all again, I would do what he did. Yeah. Or do what he recommended, which was to find either a much smaller program, right, where you're paying half that amount or quarter that amount, or move to a market and start taking classes and get yourself in a program there where that money's going towards like understanding the market you're in. And I don't think that musical theater degrees are, well, they're not necessary, but B, they're not as needed or as valuable as perhaps they once were. Yeah. Training is incredible. I'm a huge believer in training. For sure. We need training to do what we're doing. It's a skill. You can't get on talent alone. But oh boy, it's not a frivolous decision to be made.
I mean, I always say like the thing that I attribute to my college experience is like I became a person there. I'm not going to say I became a brilliant performer there. I'm not going to say I learned everything I needed to know about this industry. I, as a person, became a real person in a real world. Yeah. It was about the campus life. It was about the student population. It was about the area. Like I came from a small town and I went to this really big school, and that was what I needed out of those 4 years. And I just happened to be getting a theater degree along the way.
Yeah, so valuable.
Exactly. So like, I
think too, if you're going to do that, right? Like you got to make use of everything at your disposal. 100%. One of the things that I was really intent on doing was like making sure I used every resource available to me. I don't know why. I just like, someone told me, oh, you know, the library allows you to get this thing, or you have this program. And I'll be like, what? Oh, so cool. And so like any opportunity I had to do something or learn something or utilize something, I took it. Because if you're going to pay that crazy amount of money, you might as well.
Get your money's worth.
Things like interviewing my professors my senior year, just being like, can we do lunch and chat and like talk about these things? Or like, can I utilize your office hours more so than others? Like just anything to make use of that time. Yeah. And understanding too that when you're going to college, like you can't do everything. You're not going to be a perfect student. You can't, get a perfect grade in everything and complete every assignment perfectly. Yeah. Like it's just impossible. And that's the flawed nature of it too, right? Like you're being asked to be perfect in like 7 different classes across 1 week. Like
And also, like, until then, you're like trained in high school. You're like, oh, you can't slack in college. Like, this is not going to be okay in college. And
Right.
then you're in your very first lecture hall for whatever, and they don't know your name. You're one of a sea of people.
Right.
And
Right. But I think the intent to like not fall behind.
yeah,
Right. Like, I think, again, if you're going to pay that amount of money, you have to find the way to like,
exactly.
to be utilized,
Mhm.
to utilize. Right. So anyway, all that to say, I wish no one the burden, the financial burden
Yes.
that I am dealing with now. Because
For
it's,
sure.
it's a struggle. And like, I've been steadily working since I graduated
Mhm.
college. I'm so grateful to be able to say that. It's been a lot of work, but like, you know, to have been doing what I've been doing and also to have that burden constantly floating above my head.
Yeah.
It's really rough. And so I just would say to anyone listening that is thinking about going to school for theater, really think twice.
Yeah. We don't really talk about well, at least we haven't talked about the financials so much of like what it really looks like. But like, folks, I will tell you right now that I am currently on a payment plan, and I don't really even know how it works, if I'm being honest. Because of the amount of money I make right now, I am on what is known as the SAVE program, SAVE. I don't remember what the acronym is, but I am not required to make a monthly payment because frequently I can't. But it is still, I believe it is still accruing interest, and it will do so for X amount of years.
Is this a federal loan?
Yes.
Federal.
Yes.
Good for you.
Before I went to a state school, so
See, again, smart.
wasn't intentional, you know, it wasn't for the sake of theater,
But also you're going to be, I mean, like, that's going to save you in the long
Yeah.
run compared to someone who went to a private school.
Exactly.
You know? So it's, and was it one of the top 10 on the list of like schools you have to go to if you want a career in musical theater?
Mhm.
It may not have been. And quite honestly, it doesn't matter.
No.
It does not matter.
It's going to be crazy no matter what.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, the fact that we need to pay for this thing that everyone says that we need anyways is just a conversation in itself. But
Yeah.
alas, folks, there's going to be a lot of dollar signs, and you got to figure out how to make that work best for you, whether that be, excuse me, this is a ProBert podcast. If you feel it, you let it happen. If you decide that you need the university training for the right reasons, folks, go back and listen to last week's episode with Ryan Scott Oliver. There's
Yeah.
a lot of information in there. If you decide that you need to go to a university program for the right reasons, you are going to need to look at the financials for afterwards, not even what's going to happen immediately, for afterwards. And you need to do a lot of introspection to know that A, there's always going to be the possibility, very realistically, that you're not booking immediately out of college, and you are still going to have to pay money for this education afterwards. So you need to know if you have the tenacity to work probably a lot of jobs that you don't enjoy to pay off this thing, and if that was worth it for you, and if that will continue to be worth it for you, versus going to your market that you are interested in and building your own education, taking classes, working a job to pay your rent in the meantime, and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's a lot of factors to take into consideration, and you just got to figure out how it works
Right.
best for you, you know?
Or if you do have those resources at your disposal, like family that is
Yeah.
able to financially assist with your education or
Mhm.
take care of that in full, or if you're someone who is awarded some sort of scholarship or grant, like that's wonderful. And,
Yeah.
and if you can do it, by all means go.
Mhm.
Right? For me, like I wanted that college experience.
Yeah.
I really did. And for me, it was also a connection to my family members, like to
course.
be able to walk the same campus or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
like, and was that worth the financial burden I have now? Who's to say? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter now, but
We'll decide later on.
We'll
in
decide
life.
later on in life. But, you know, for some people, it's totally doable and totally
Mhm.
worth it. And like, there were things about that experience I'm so glad I had.
Yeah.
Truly. I love that place. It's flawed. It's imperfect. There's so much I wish I could change.
They're always going to be.
But, you know, yeah. So you have to weigh all the things in your financial equation.
Exactly. And that's how it goes, folks. But anywho, so you graduate. What does life look like in terms of your theatrical journey immediately after?
Yeah. So like I said, I mean, I was really dead set on doing Jersey Boys. And the summer before my senior year of college, I took myself to my first ever New York City EPA.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I was non-union. I was EMC, which at this point, I don't know how like if that's even a thing or
She's alive and
She's
well.
alive and well,
She will
great.
be alive and well till May, to which point
they'll decide what to do after
we
that.
will be
Oh, they're getting rid of
yeeted
it.
right off. Yes.
Okay.
So right now, nobody new can join the EMC program ever since they reworked the
Open
anyone
access.
anyone can join equity situation. Nobody new can join EMC, but those who were already EMC had 3 years to continue to work as an EMC actor.
Got it.
So as of next May, that will be dissipating, and then you can either take your card or be completely non-union.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So I was, that summer before my senior year, I took myself to my first ever EPA.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for Jersey Boys.
So you were EMC?
At that point, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
You had worked professionally before?
I had done, up in Ithaca at the Hangar Theater, I did a reading of a new musical.
Great.
For 2 weeks where my professors were the leads.
Amazing. Honestly, what a great way to get that EMC card.
Yeah. Well, and that was, I mean, and again, this is something that you weigh and choose. Like if your program has a connection with local regional theaters or has the ability to get you whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they had auditioned a few college students for this, to be in the ensemble of this musical at the Hangar Theater. And so I did, it was 2 weeks and it was a reading and I got my points and paid my $100 and I was, my first 2 toes into the union, which was great. And so I went to the CPA and a friend of mine had said, Justin, you've got to go. And I was working up in Ithaca that summer and I was like, if I don't at least show up to this audition, I will kick myself in the head for the rest of the time.
Of course.
Just do it. Am I prepared? Am I ready? In my head at that point, I did not think so.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I did. I went to this EPA. I was the first one seen or the second person seen at like 10 a.m., 10:03. I was out the door. And saw myself by Lindsay Levine from, at that point, she was at Tara Rubin and she's now at, oh my gosh, hello, Telsey, thank you. And, and that was that. And I went back up to Ithaca and a few days later, I got my first ever callback.
Hell yeah.
And came back down for another sing and read, the first sing and read with the material. And she gave me some notes. And then next week, I was back down 2 more times. And made it to essentially final callbacks for at that point what was the re-putting up of the tour, moving from what was production to CETA, which is now no longer a thing, but they were just condensing the tour a little bit. Fast forward, I ended up joining this tour several years later, but this was my first go round at it. Again, I had not graduated college yet. This was my first ever New York City real audition, other than when I was a tiny little child. And so I was kind of in over my head. I did not get it, but I ended up coming back to my senior year of school with this tremendously valuable experience of having been in rooms with casting directors, understanding what a packet is, how to prepare the materials, what's going to happen in these rooms, how to deal with being in the room with other people that are also gunning for the same gig as you, know what I mean? Outside of the educational world. And that kind of set the lens for the rest of for that entire year, which was so helpful. And to be able to answer questions for myself about things without having to go to professor, right, was just, and this is, again, where you weigh that question of, is the experience better or is the someone teaching it to you in a classroom better? And both are helpful, both are valuable. Towards the end of my senior year, there's one of the first ever regional productions of Jersey Boys was being done. Saw it on their website, saw it on Actors Access, and I submitted. I cold submitted. And this is a thing I still do, a little bit less now that I have representation, but something that I encourage you to do, especially early on, is get your name out there, follow their directions for certain, but cold submit.
Of course.
Put your stuff out there and send them what you got, right? You never know who's going to go, we could use you.
Exactly.
And I did, and I booked this job. Before I graduated senior year, I had my first ever equity job, got my card.
Amazing.
At a regional theater for a regional premiere of a show that was my dream show. Yeah. To play Frankie and Jersey Boys out in Arizona, the Phoenix Theater Company. And I got to do it. And so I left school knowing that I was going to be a member of the union, which a lot of my professors some of them were absolutely do it. Yeah. And some of them were I don't know, Justin, I don't know if you're going to have a career in musical theater. Yeah. Is this really what you want? There are going to be some people that are going to be getting these great non-union tours. And I have several classmates that have been in these incredible non-union tours. And that just that wasn't my lane. Yeah. And I ultimately chose that. And I'm so glad I did. And I'm happy to talk about union pride and the value of being a union member. So I got to do that. That was my first gig. And then after that, I kind of started following this Jersey Boys wave. Yeah. And before I even went out to Phoenix, shortly after that, I kept on being called in by the Dodgers for replacements for the tour, replacements for off-Broadway. I went down and did a stint as a rehearsal swing for Norwegian Cruise Lines for their production of Jersey Boys, which was also put up by Dodgers and cast by the same people, same creatives. And then ultimately, finally in the summer fall of 2019, I joined the tour. Nice. And my headshot had been in that stack for a few years at that point. Yeah. I'd been in 4 or 5 times before I finally got it. Yeah. And I was with the tour from the fall of 2019 to good old March of 2020.
Love that.
Where tour got shut down. And I mean, it was an incredible experience. So I got to do that first year of tour. We have the pandemic. We're all wondering whether we're going to get our jobs back. And in the fall of 21, I hopped back on the tour. They asked us all to come back, fortunately, which was really wonderful. I did that through basically the fall of the following year. In that time, I did a quick replacement gig at Off-Broadway at New World Stages. Got to do Frankie there. And then the following year, I ended up doing 2 more regional productions of Jersey Boys.
Gotcha.
And then there came a point where I was like, I can either continue because I'm reading the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
Every regional theater across the country is doing Jersey Boys.
And they always will be.
And they always will be. And right now it's a hot ticket to sell, right? Especially on the regional level. I could work steadily for the next 2-3 years with the same role, same show.
Yeah.
And do very little in terms of like putting in extra work or whatever. And that was not what I wanted. I found myself being very, not resentful. I pride myself on being a kind human being in a way, but like I just was getting annoyed at dumb little things. When you know something so well, right? When you do a show that like means so much to you, you've seen how great it can be. You see how it lands on people. You know how it's like quote unquote supposed to go.
Yes.
And then you start doing it in other places and you're like, right? Like irks you a little bit. And it's not that it's wrong. I mean,
yeah.
But I was like, right, my artistic expression or creativity, right, is not being played with.
Yep.
And I want to believe that I'm capable of doing more than just this one thing.
Yeah.
Which, again, for so long, I pigeonholed myself. I did that to myself, right? Like, I was like, I want to be Jersey Boys. I want to do that.
Like, yes, but also this is, I think, also a product of the regional machine, being that a lot of times there are a lot of theaters who see a show and then they see their very middle-aged white population and say they would love this.
Sure
and they would pay lots of money to do this. And, oh, look, we have these people who already know it. That'll be so easy for us.
Yes.
And we'll bring them in. It doesn't even matter how good the show is. These people already know it. And the people will enjoy it one way or another.
And they will.
Yeah.
And it's a great time. And it's a beautiful show. It's a wonderful show.
Yeah.
So like, but I actively had to start saying no to these auditions because I knew if I didn't, I would just keep going.
Yeah.
And I had friends that were like, you saying no to Jersey Boys? Or like, I remember I put something on social media at one point. I was like, you know, saying goodbye to this for a while.
Yeah.
And I had people replying being like, yeah, right. And I was like, hey, no, it's true. You know, and listen, will I return to the show? I'm sure I will.
Of course you will.
And will I be
that's
happy
fine.
to do it? Sure. But in order for that to happen, I need to take a break, or I need to explore other things and make sure that, like, anyway, I'm so glad that I did that because it has afforded me some wonderful and really cool opportunities this last year or two.
Yeah.
Things that I would never have imagined I got to do. So I'm really grateful I did that. And time away from something you love allows you to love it again.
Of course.
And I have a large amount of admiration and respect for these people who are doing some of these shows for years and years. I mean, people that were doing Phantom, or the people that are in Wicked for decades, right? Or like things like that where you're sticking with a show because, yes, it has afforded us stability. And that tour did. Without question, it did.
Yeah.
You know, I never had that much money in my bank account.
Totally.
And it was amazing. And now, several years later, I'm, you know, clearly not in that place.
You know, it happens. It's a wave that we ride.
Yeah. And there are ups and downs. It is a wild roller coaster of a business to begin with. It's a wild roller coaster to do a long-running show and be in it for a long time. And to be sitting on the same material day after day. And you have to find your way back into it. And there are days where it is purely work, you know, except for that one tiny moment where you're reminded, yeah, no, I love this.
For sure.
I'd rather be doing this than anything else. But it does become work. And so like, and that's where all the external work you do as a human being comes into play.
Yeah.
And there may come a point where I get to do something like that again, be it Jersey Boys, be it something else. But I knew it was important for me as an artist, as a human being, to just make sure I got to do some other shit.
For sure. For sure. I mean, listen, I am someone who cannot deal with monotony, no matter how cool it is, no matter how much I'm getting paid. Like, I need things to change. I have this little ADHD brain of mine, and like, I need stimulation in different ways. And like, I don't know, stability is great, but also life has so much to offer.
It does.
So
I'm from Long Island, right? Where it's like, especially in my neighborhood, it's like Italian Catholic central.
Yeah.
And full transparency, I am not Italian.
Heard.
I am a nice Jewish boy from Long Island who found himself living in a town that was almost entirely Italian.
Yeah.
At least in my memory, that's how it is.
Heard.
I look back at it or ask my parents, and they're like, I don't think it really was as much as you say it is. I'm like, yeah, but there were 4 pizza places around the corner from my high school, so like you can't tell me otherwise.
Exactly.
So, like I'll talk to people and the pride they have, the excitement they have when I got to do something like Jersey Boys, they'd be like, oh, Jersey boy, you're the Jersey boy, my parents are part of a community band. They're both music teachers. My dad's the conductor of the band. And it's like, people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, right? They're all playing instruments. It's so cute. And anytime I walk in, because I'm a trumpet player, I'll come and sit in on a rehearsal. And they'll be like, oh, are you still doing Jersey Boys? Or they're so excited. And when I tell these people, like, actually, no, I've stopped doing that. I've now been doing some other shows. I'm working regionally. I'm working across whatever. Like, and I tell them some of these other things, they go, oh, okay, that's nice. You don't want to do, they're doing Jersey Boys here at the Engelman. Oh, at the Argyle, they're going to be doing. Are you going to do it? Are you going in for it? I said no, and I'll say to them, I wanted to take a break from that. I wanted to make sure I could do something else. Like I didn't want to do the same thing forever. And mind you, I'm talking to people who have like done the same job forever. Every day of their life forever. Yeah. And it doesn't quite compute to them. They're like, why would you turn down the coolest job? In their heads, right?
That's so funny.
It is wild. You're like,
truly,
yeah, you're right. Like in no other industry or no other world, right, except the creative artist world, like, do we expect or hope that our lives and our work lives are just like up and down and changing all the time and staying completely inconsistent, right? How exciting is it that we can do this job then and that job then and this place here and that place, that tour or that show, whereas someone who's like, no, I want, stability to me sounds like working in the same place with an incredible pay, salary year after year. And so, yeah.
That's always so fascinating to me too, because it's like, I don't even know if these people are really like able to like check their work at the door before they leave and go home and then just have the rest of their life. Because I feel like I see so many people like bringing so much work stress home with them. And maybe that's just my perception to make my life feel way cooler or whatnot. But also I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just not built like that. Yeah. I'm not.
And, that's...
To each their own.
To each their own. Like, we stay in this because we love it and because we're willing to put up with the struggle and the pain we inflict on ourselves. But, and the joy that it brings us, the immense amount of joy that it brings us. But yeah, not everyone is built for that. And that's why some people stick around in this longer than others, and that there's no shame to be had whatsoever about it. I constantly think about other things I might do, but then there's the other part of my brain saying, well, you're really enjoying this and like you're making it work. And so for the time being, you love it too much. Why? Don't give it up. But it's true. I mean, it takes a certain amount of tenacity and resilience. Aside from the rejection thing, but like the inconsistency thing, which when people ask me like, how are you doing? Catch me up on life. One of the number one things I just directly say, I'll go, yeah, no, things are good. I'm nomadic. Nothing's consistent. I have no like social network, and I'll just start listing the complaints because I'm like scared to talk about the wins. Yeah. But one of the things I'll talk about is like how my life is so inconsistent because that feels like the biggest window into what my life actually is. Which is true. Like, I don't live in any one particular place. I ran into someone on the street last night. I was running to get pizza, and he was like, "Oh, what are you doing? I thought you were in Chicago. Why are you here? Are you back? Are you living here?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I was in Chicago. I'm no longer in Chicago, but I'm not really here." Like, it's this game of trying to explain where the hell I live. Yeah. Yeah. Which is, for some people, the actor's life.
For sure. Well, you know what? Listen, everyone has different reasons that they enjoy being in this career. And it's very easy to judge other people in their trajectory and be like, oh, you're doing this for whatever reason, like child's play or whatever. But like, if you can get paid to do what you love and it scratches the itch of why you want to be doing it, fucking do it.
Do it, please. Just
Who cares?
Please be happy.
Just like do it. I don't care if you're doing it for 20 years. Like do it. No. If it's bringing you joy.
You did not fail.
Yeah,
you did not fail. You did not like do a good enough job. It's all just too hard. And this is coming from someone who has had some small level of success in the first handful of years, being in this industry. And in 3 years from now, who's to say I won't
Who's
be
to say?
sitting down on my luck and going, right, I'm out.
Exactly.
And like, it didn't work. It quote unquote didn't work out because, and you can't frame it like that.
No.
So
listen, time is a crazy thing. We literally can't predict anything,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I know that I'm going to have a thriving career in my 40s.
Yeah, baby.
I know that when I get to that point, I will be smooth and steady. And who's to say what happens until there? I would like to think there's going to be a lot. But you know what?
Right.
At the end of the day,
You never know.
I have that to look forward to at
40s,
least.
baby.
My
My partner and I will, she's an actor too. She's on the tour of Mamma Mia right now. And something we'll say to each other is like, it's a numbers game. It's the long game, right? Like, listen, if we make our Broadway debut when we're 60, like we did it.
Exactly.
And for me, it has never been the end all be all goal.
Yeah.
It's something I would love to do. It'd
For
be nice.
sure.
But when these, outside of the industry people will go, so what do you do? Like, I just went to my 10-year high school reunion
Oh my
last
God.
2 weekends ago. And, people are like, oh, I saw you were doing the Jersey Boys. Are you still doing the Jersey Boys thing? Yeah, I'm putting them in an Italian Catholic
Of course.
persona because that's who they are.
Exactly.
And so they all speak with this thick Long Island accent. Oh, you still doing Jersey Boys? Oh, so what are you like doing Broadway? Like what are you plays? And are you doing movie? Like they ask like the really annoying basic questions.
Yeah.
And when they ask like Broadway, in my head I'm like, am I operating within the world of New York City theater or that market? Yes. Can I say to them I've been on Broadway? No. Will I one day make my Broadway debut? Maybe when I'm 60. Cool. That's okay. So like I try to keep myself entertained when these questions happen.
It's this very fun existence. I've said this a couple times now of like, you're not necessarily in the Broadway community proper, but like you're just adjacent to it. Like you're just on the outside of this circle and this bubble.
Yes and no. I have a really good friend, Sam Gershman. She's currently in Water for Elephants. She was doing Beautiful Noise, the original company right before that. And she was on tour with us for Jersey Boys. And we did this talk back one time.
Yeah.
In whatever city we were in. And there was about 6 of us on stage. 1 or 2 of the people had been on Broadway. Some of us had only toured. Some were like brand new to this world to begin with. There's a pretty varying degree of people. And there was someone in the audience that asked, so what Broadway shows have you guys done? And so the 1 or 2 that have done Broadway shows like raised their hand and were like shared and whatever. And, they all got applause or they, people, oh, I love that,
Yeah.
And Sam so graciously put, she's like, this isn't to condescend anyone. I just want to share with you guys all that, like, we are all part of that community.
Yeah.
We really, the people you see on Broadway and the people you see on this tour and the people that you see in your local regional equity houses, like, they're all part of the same community.
Yeah.
And like, you have to understand that just because you're paying X amount of money for this ticket on this thing, like,
For sure.
it doesn't mean that the person you're seeing is any less qualified or any less eligible to be a part of it. And it was a really good, and sure enough, a few months later, she booked her first Broadway show.
Boom.
And it was just such a valating thing for us to witness and us to see. Because maybe at that time, I maybe was on the opposite, being like, oh, I'm not good enough for Broadway yet. Maybe in 5-10 years, like, I'm someone who plays myself down in an effort to be like, no,
They could never be little me.
Right, exactly.
What?
Yeah, maybe to soften the blow. But, it was a really good reminder of, yes, we're all playing in the same framework.
Yeah.
And just that alone is really exciting and really cool. Am I on the same level as some of those heavyweight champions? No.
Yeah.
But I'm still operating under the same system and same framework. And so I have to perform like that, or I have to navigate like that.
Exactly.
So
yeah, listen, folks, like Broadway is not, I've said this many a time, there's such a small percentile of professional actors who are actively on Broadway. Like such a little tiny sliver in terms of the whole scheme of being a professional actor. So if that's your end all be all, great. But like there were just so many things to do out there. And I personally am excited to do them all. I'm excited to try them all. I'm excited to not necessarily have that end goal and continue to just do different things throughout my entire life. How beautiful.
totally. Let me ask you this, Brennan. Like,
Go for it.
what was your, I guess it's a two-sided question and maybe you can answer them together. Like, what was your reasoning for making this particular podcast? And who is your audience with this? And like,
Yeah,
does that make sense?
it sure does.
yeah.
I love that.
I'll leave that there.
So after I graduated college, I went to this state school. I had a general degree in theater in which my kind of quote unquote focuses that I made were performance and costume design. I did the costume design one because that was something I did enjoy, but it was also my fallback for sure. I also had a minor in education because that was a fallback as well. And acting was my passion. Musical theater was my passion. I didn't even have a musical theater training. And I entered into this world of just complete uncertainty. I had no clue how to actually be a professional actor. I didn't know where to find an audition. I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. And then that summer, right out of college, I started working in a costume shop for a regional theater in Rhode Island called Theater by the Sea. And I was all of a sudden surrounded by all of these people that were my age doing this thing that I love and I want to do so badly. And I just had no clue how they even got there, you know? And I became very close friends with a lot of the acting interns there who were actively students at the time that were doing this internship program over the summer. And they went to this fancy BFA program. And I was like hearing all of the things that they were doing and all of the things that they were learning. And I was like, I don't even know what any of this is. This is so out of my realm of understanding. And I spent 4 years of my life trying to get ready for this. And I don't know how to actually do it. You know, can I perform? Yeah. Can I act? Yes. But how do I even do that? You know, how do I get a paycheck from doing that? So I will proudly say I mooched off of their education the last 2 years of their experience. You know, they taught me so much of what I know. I learned a lot from being in costumes in the regional sphere, you know, but at the end of the day, like the real driving force was like, I was sitting there in my costume shop that's directly under the rehearsal hall, sewing away, listening to these people. And I'm like, I can do that. And honestly, I can do that better than some of them, you know, not even in like a snarky way, like truly like that was oh wait, no, like I can actually do this kind of thing. I just wasn't given the tools that these folks have, you know, and like, could I have gone to a prestigious BFA program? Maybe, but like my high school didn't have the tools to say, yes, if you want to study theater, you should go to these schools. We are going to help you find the requirements and tell you what preparation you should need. That was way out of the realm of that understanding. So truly, it wasn't really a possibility. And like my theater program was what it was, but it also wasn't like, yes, these are even better programs, you know, like if you're wanting this, you should transfer or whatever.
Well, fast forward to now.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you missed out? Or do you feel like you now have the tools that you needed anyway?
I currently feel like I have the tools.
There you go.
You know, and it has truly been from learning from others who have had these educations or the things that I have done on my own in the city, the work
just by doing.
Yeah, exactly. By taking voice lessons, by taking acting classes and audition technique classes, you know, it has become this just
a group effort.
Yeah, it's a group effort. It truly is a community. It truly is a network. I constantly learn, sometimes when I'm not even actively seeking, like how this works.
Tips and tricks or things you should be doing. Yeah.
So that's really why it started. And in terms of who this is for all of those Brennans out there who truly do not have the clue as to how to approach it, you know? Because quite frankly, I will not say that I was the most driven person because I was a very anxious person. And I had all of these inner demons telling me that, you know.
What a wonderful industry to enter with all that.
Literally, truly. I had all of these inner demons telling me that, you know, you can try, but it might not happen. You know, it might not. And you're going to need a real stroke of luck. But then once I started trying and getting feedback from people in the industry and doing this thing, and you know, I have the confidence to say that I know I can do this.
Yeah.
I know I can. And if I had said that to myself, even just like 2 years ago, that would have been so out of this world for me, you know? And like, quite frankly, my resume is still not incredibly big, but like, I'm not sad about that right now, you know? Things are really just getting started for me.
Correct.
And I have so much faith in that. And yeah, this is just so all of those people out there know that it's possible. They now have this
at any degree of education.
Truly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or understanding. Yeah.
And like, I get a lot of messages from college students who are like, I am so happy that I found this because we're not learning this in our program. Or like, I went to school, but I didn't get that training. And I'm so happy I found this. And I'm like, that's who I'm doing it for. You know, I'm doing it for y'all. And if anyone else gets enjoyment out of it, I am so happy to have you here, you know? I like, especially like the muggles out there who this isn't their profession and they're just like,
Curious.
wow, this is so interesting that this is how this world works. You know, I'm like, amazing. What a cool community. And I'm, you know, I am truly just a small part of it.
Yeah.
You know, I am on here to learn just as much as everyone else.
Totally. I listen to tons of podcasts, some that are relevant to this industry, some that are not, but a lot of the ones that I do, I'm like, oh, wow, that's a nifty trick. Or
exactly.
Didn't know that. Oh, cool. Like
for sure.
Constantly adding to my tool bag. And these are things that, you know, you can pick up with any level of experience.
Yeah.
And so it's awesome that you're doing that. It's super valuable and insightful and, you know, might help someone make a decision for better.
I appreciate that. I do. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like each episode is essentially a lesson. It is a classroom lesson that you can take and you can build your education
for free.
For free. For free. God.
Look, like I was sitting in my dressing room for the gig I was doing this past summer, you know, and something as simple as like how to label my videos for when I upload them to, you know, Actors Access or send them off to my agents. And like my buddy just like turned to me and was like, oh, you know, you could do blah, blah, blah. You could do this. And I was like, oh, really? Oh, that's
truly.
Oh, that's a great call. And like, you know, we're just sitting there like getting ready for the show or like eating dinner or whatever, you know, and just things like that. So it really is a group effort. I mean, yes. Are we all out for ourselves? Absolutely. But are we also there to typically catch each other when we fall or assist each other or push each other up?
Yeah,
totally. I don't think you get far in this business without having some aspect of community thinking and
truly
positive uplifting of your peers and fellow coworkers. So,
and like everyone, especially like the people who are going to these universities and stuff, like everyone is being taught different rules. You know, like everyone is taught that there are a set of rules that you have to follow, but everyone is being taught completely different ones. And then you get out here and you're like, oh, wait, does it even matter?
I would
does it even matter?
Right. Probably doesn't.
Yeah.
And I would argue too that if you really wanted to get to the bottom of it, if you're in school or if you're younger or still starting out, like, and if you reached out to, you know, pretty much any average actor working or, you know, that you see on social media, and if you were to like direct message them and just ask them a question about the industry, likely they would be thrilled to share that information with you.
A+.
An opportunity to talk about ourselves? Absolutely.
That's the thing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're actors. Everyone wants to do it.
And whether that's a selfish thing or not, like you as the person asking will probably get a valuable answer or you'll learn something you didn't already know.
Yeah.
And so just do that.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then bring that to your class or don't. I don't know. Like, you know.
Listen, do your thing. At the end of the day, this career is do your thing.
Do your thing.
And that's exactly right. I want to talk about the regional theater of it all because you have had an extensive career in that. And like we've touched upon regional theater and whatnot, but like I like to do just like little prep kind of things nowadays, which is simply, well, first off, like what is regional theater? Like, let's give it a definition.
Yeah. I think there's a couple ways to think about it. I think also too, like, so I have found myself working in the regional market. I found myself on a national tour. I found myself working in the New York market. And I've also found myself working in the Chicago market as of late, which is a new thing for me. And sometimes, like, I will look at a theater that's in the Chicago market and think of it as a regional theater because I'm from New York. Yeah. And when I talk to, like, when I operate in the New York pool, that's a regional theater to me. However, when I'm out there, like, that's like a Chicago theater. And so, like, people are like, it's not a regional theater, but, like, it kind of is. Yeah. Right? So...
by definition, yes.
Yeah.
By cultural standard, no.
Right. By what you're used to or the market that I'm, you know, that you're operating in. So, yeah, regional theater is theater that's working... It's not a touring venue. It is a theater that is typically creating its own productions from start to finish in-house, you know, and for the market that they are located in.
Yep. Usually equity contracts.
Yep.
There is an official list on the internet of equity theaters, folks. So if you are curious about the things you are auditioning for, you can hop on there. I will say there are a lot of theaters out there that will claim to be a regional theater.
I was going to say, I think that the bigger classification is not so much the difference between like a regional theater and Broadway or regional theater and tour, but really a regional theater and community theater.
Exactly.
And so like community theater and also regional theaters, sometimes they're for-profit and sometimes not for-profit.
Yes.
Right. And community theaters can be for-profit or not for-profit either.
Exactly.
But I think it has more to do with like who they're employing and how they're going about their business, what makes them community versus regional. Yeah. And so, you know, with regional theaters, like they're often employing people out of the New York or Chicago or LA or other city talent pool, that are professional working actors, oftentimes associated with the union or other unions for, their, creative teams or their crew or all that. And then a community theater is really for the community, by the community.
Yeah.
And can someone who operates in the professional world who may be non-union want to work at a community theater and do so? Sure.
Totally.
You're probably not benefiting monetarily off of that by any means. And the credit might not count for terribly that much, but again, that is your choosing and can be fulfilling in other ways.
Yeah. So every regional theater is different. That is the catch-all be-all. Is there's no really one way to prepare, but like generally speaking, if you are hired for a regional theater that is not in an area that you live in, they will typically transport you, probably.
Totally.
They will probably house you of some sort, but like these are all things that will be in your contract.
Yep. So it depends on A, what they're offering, B, what you're able to negotiate with or without your representatives. And like, ultimately, if they know they're hiring out of town talent, typically they're going to put you up. They're going to pay for your flights. They're going to pay for your transportation to and from the airports. Sometimes they provide you with a per diem. That's not often the case, but more often than not, they'll set you up with the ability to live in that place and then perform.
Yes.
And so I've had the pleasure of and like awesome opportunity to work in some really great regional houses all over the country, in Arizona, in Illinois, in Michigan. And so like, typically it's a wonderful place with wonderful people doing their best to make some awesome theater with the budget and the resources that they have in those places and for the communities that they serve. And more often than not, these are really cool places with wonderful people coming to see the shows that are just so excited to have, you be there.
Totally.
And to do great shows. And it's an exciting experience.
It is.
Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes it's really fun. I've worked at Saugatuck Center for the Arts, a Mason Street warehouse in Saugatuck, Michigan. And for instance, that experience felt like going to summer camp. All of us are from out of town.
Yeah.
They put us up, they house us, they fly us out there. And we're there for like 6 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And we put on a show. And you're living by the lake over the summer, and every day there's, like, hey, we're going to the beach. Hey, we're going to do this thing. Hey, we want to go out to, and it's a lot of fun. And like the community loves the arts and that kind of thing, So you'll have subscribers or patrons that are there, right? They'll throw events where you get to interact with the community, meet some of the donors, right? They'll host these galas. And in that particular contract, there's a lot of wealthy people living out on Lake Michigan.
But of course.
And so, some of these people with like $1 million homes and have docks or they have boats or like really nice places to congregate. They'll invite the cast and the company to like, come and spend an evening in our home or on our dock or, like we'll throw you a party. Like, because for them, it's just so exciting to have these people.
Truly.
And so we'll get wined and dined. And I often say that in this life as an actor, I'm living sometimes the life of a really wealthy person without ever having to show my wallet.
Truly.
Right?
Yeah.
Without having anything to back that up. And so I've gotten to perform on cruise ships. I've gotten to travel all different continents for work. I've gotten to like go to these places and be on people's boats and be in people's backyards and be in people's homes and experience things that I would never have otherwise been able to experience
for sure
without paying for it. And that, it comes at a cost, certainly, right?
Of course.
But it's a really exciting experience.
Truly. And like, even like when it isn't the biggest of theaters either, like you're going to this rather quaint area and whatnot, but that's like a life of monotony there that they have. So all of a sudden you are this thing that
the
is
coolest thing,
stirring things up, and you will get recognized, and you're just doing a little production in a rinky-dink theater, thinking nothing of it, and then you're getting recognized at bars, and people are asking you questions and buying you drinks and stuff, and it's like...
It's wild.
It's not too shabby.
In Saugatuck, there's a pizza place. It's like right down the street from the theater, and they're donors to the theater. And they would like send pizzas to the theater,
amazing,
give us food for different parties or whatever. And we'd walk in there, and like I was doing a production of Jersey Boys at the time, and the four of us like would walk in there, and they would freak out. They'd be like, "Oh my guys, pie's on us. This is on us.
Oh my God.
Don't take out." Like they'd be so excited that we were there. Oh, the Jersey Boys are here. Like, it was just so funny, and so the community loves it. And in your head, you might be like, "This is cute. Like, how cute of them to
literally."
But for them, it's a really big deal, and
truly,
and within reason, you can kind of relax into that and go, "That's right.
Yeah,
I'm putting a smile on their face."
Exactly. I'm doing the thing. I'm getting paid, and like, I don't know. If you listen, I'm not going to shame anyone who dreams of stardom.
Right? No, of course,
I'm not going to do that. But like, this is a great taste of that, you know?
It is.
It's quite frankly, it's a nice little ego boost.
It is a nice little ego boost.
Yeah.
And you're getting paid to do what you set out to do.
Exactly.
Regional work is a lot of fun. It could be difficult.
For
I mean,
sure.
you're upending your life, right? So that sometimes comes with like finding a sublet, figuring out what you're doing when you come back, you know, the logistics of your life outside of this one particular gig. If you're in a relationship that's long distance, right? Like for me, oftentimes what I end up doing is, you know, my partner, she's on a tour. And so she's constantly moving place every 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm in a place for 2 to 3 months. And then I'll jump to another place for 2 or 3 months. And in between and around that, we're often trying to navigate like, all right, they're giving me a flight back home. But if I ask them to fly me to this place, I can hang out with you.
Exactly.
And then from there, I can fly home, get my stuff. Then I can fly back to, you know, like, you know, you're constantly having to work logistics and figure out how to move around the country, really.
For sure.
And so, you know, my family and I have a fun joke. They're like, oh, cool. Yeah, we'll see you next year. You know, for the 2 weeks, we get to see you next year.
Yeah.
You know, because like it's just constantly on, you know, you're jumping around. But
Exactly.
you have to find a way to make it work. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. What else?
I mean, let's see. So we got, also, I forgot to say earlier, like if there's housing and transportation, a lot of times it will say it in the breakdown. It'll say your pay is this kind of contract plus transportation, housing, etc., whatever.
Yeah.
Also, don't be afraid to negotiate that kind of stuff.
Oh,
because...
yeah. What I'll say is like, you have to be able to make it work for yourself. And if it's not worth it, then you shouldn't do it. There's a sliding scale to that based on where you are in your experience and your what your resume looks like, how much, you know, experience you have, how early in your career, late in your career you are, right? I'll give an example. So like I just got to do this production of The Lord of the Rings,
a
musical tale in Chicago, which was so cool and so exciting. A very difficult production to put on.
Yeah.
But it was at Chicago Shakespeare Theater, which is a really cool theater in Chicago. And when I got to tell people that, they're like, oh, that's so cool that you're going out to do that. So cool credit, cool role, cool show, right? Like ticked a lot of the boxes off. I had to go and be a local for this production.
Gotcha.
And my agents and I mean, basically the theater was like, we can only hire you unless you're local, right? If you're local. And so I had to make a decision of, okay, that means not only am I uprooting my life or wherever I am, wherever I'm based, now I actually have to go and like pay rent there. I'm not being flown out there. I have to get myself out there. It's a whole litany of things that I now have to add on to the table of like, you know, the rest of the work. You know, preparing and memorizing and making my body able to do the things they need me to do. And that was a decision that I made that I thought was worthwhile. And totally. It is, and it has been.
Yeah.
And so financially, I didn't do too well with that.
Yeah.
But like that was the trade-off of getting to do this really cool show in a great theater in this market. And I don't regret that. But I mean, that was something that I was willing to do for a show like that, but maybe not for a different kind of show.
Exactly.
And now that I've done that, right? So I got to work at the Marriott Theater earlier last year.
Yep.
And earlier this year. And that kind of allowed the Chicago scene to kind of see who I am.
Totally.
Right. And now I started getting these auditions for Chicago theaters.
Yep.
Well, the majority of them I have to say no to because they are not enough money.
Yep.
Like and to not be an out of town actor.
Yeah.
Basically, like you got to live here and we're paying you half of what like you're used to getting. And that's not bad or that's not wrong. It just might not be for me.
Totally.
So you're constantly having to weigh what's worthwhile.
Exactly.
Which feels insane when you get sent an audition from your agents and like, you know, I'm like, nah, I'm probably going to pass on it. Right? Like 5 years ago, I'd be like, what? Like, no, you just got an audition that's so cool. You have to do it. You have to do it. And that's where I was 5 years ago. But where I am now is totally different.
Exactly.
When it comes to negotiating, you know, sometimes there are things you want to die on that hill for. And sometimes there are things that you're willing to let slide. And there are often times where I'm like, no, I'm going to be so stalwart about this. I will not do it unless this happens.
Yeah.
Fast forward 2 weeks, you're like, I guess I don't really need that.
Yeah. I feel like there is the big three. Okay, but also, obviously, as a certified capital N nerd, I do have to ask you about your time doing this premiere show of The Lord of the Rings.
Let's go.
On stage.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, it's
amazing.
Wild.
Damn.
So this show had been done in the early 2000s, like 2006, 2007 in Toronto and then the West End. And it was a multi-million-dollar flop.
Heard.
Total disaster. You can find videos of it on YouTube.
Incredible.
It's pretty incredible, like what they did on stage, but it didn't work at the time, and the market was not here for it. It was also like shortly after the films came out.
Gotcha.
So I think it was a bit too soon.
Heard, for sure.
65-member cast. Like
65?
Yes. I mean,
oh my
all these orcs
God.
on stilts and hopping around and
But
dancers.
of course.
You know, I mean, the budget for this thing was huge.
Yeah.
So this is not that. It's the same material. It's the same script. It's the same music, same score. And some of this music is gorgeous. Some of these scenes are really beautifully made. It's a really hard thing to put 3 full novels or 3 parts of a larger novel onto a stage.
Yeah.
And tell it seamlessly, coherently, with full character arcs. There's a lot that gets lost.
Totally.
I will say that. And if you are a fan of Lord of the Rings, and if you have seen this or want to see it at some point, I think you just have to understand and know that like it's a tribute to, it is for the love of the show and not so much like an accurate adaptation.
100. I mean, listen, that is 3 of the longest movies ever.
Correct.
Especially when the diehard fans are only watching the complete extended editions, you know. But for the casual watchers, like, listen, there's so much walking in Lord of the Rings. That feels so easily cuttable.
So we took a lot of walking out. So I played Legolas in the show.
Amazing.
And we are actually in a few weeks about to take this baby over to Auckland, New Zealand.
What?
Yes. We're taking it home to Hobbiton, which is so exciting.
Crazy.
It is crazy. And they're taking all of us over there, which is wild. And again, one of those like once in a lifetime things. Like not only am I traveling to a country that is, you know, not an easily accessible one for most Americans, but I'm also going over there for work and spending like 5 or 6 weeks there as an ambassador for the show or for America, right? Like whatever that is, however you want to frame that. And we're going to get to do a ton of travel. And here's a situation where like, this won't be a lucrative experience because I'll be spending most of the money I'm making on traveling around the country. And that to me is worth it.
Yeah.
Right? Like whatever hole I put in my wallet, as long as I'm able to come back and like resurface and be a bounce back, it's worth it because when am I ever going to come back to this country?
Exactly.
For Lord of the Rings too.
To do Lord of the Rings in its homeland? Are you joking? Like that is, if you're a nerd, that is the Holy Grail. Truly.
It's the Holy Grail. So for context, this version of the show was done at the Watermill Theatre, which is outside of London in England last summer. And it was done partly outside, partly inside at a 200-seat theater. And the whole premise of this version of the show is that it is being told by hobbits for hobbits.
Gotcha.
And that all...
By hobbits for hobbits.
By hobbits for hobbits. That's our tagline. It should be, actually.
Oh my God.
And that all of us are playing musical instruments.
Amazing.
So as a one-time in my life trumpet player, I had to brush off my trumpet and get back to work, and I played trumpet in the show.
That's
Legolas
incredible.
plays trumpet in the show.
That's
Should he
incredible.
be? Jury's out. But
yeah.
But yeah, so we are doing everything. We are dancing, singing, acting on stage. We're fighting on stage. We're playing our instruments on stage. We are puppeteering on stage.
Yeah.
It is just so much. And so it's a theatrical event.
Yeah.
And also like a really heartfelt tribute to this story.
Yeah.
And so the framework that I'm kind of operating in, that we're all meant to be operating under, is that like we are retelling this fable that we have known. We're telling it with music. We're telling it with puppetry, with magic, right? Are there flaws? Are there things I wish I were different? Oh, you betcha.
I mean, yeah.
You get a room of like 30 nerds in a room. We're going to we want things to be pristine and perfect. Of
course.
And when things are not, we're like, oh, well, actually Bilbo got on the ship and,
exactly.
People are like, well, I read the Silmarillion. And we get so nerdy, but it's, I'm a huge nerd, right? Like Star Wars,
of course,
all that stuff. And I had read The Hobbit twice before. It's one of my favorite books. Over the pandemic, I decided to read the, Fellowship of the Rings. And I was like, great, finish that, on to the next. Let me just take a little bit of time before I read it. It was a large, dense book. Never got to it. Never read the other two. And then I get cast in this. And I was like, right, okay, so now you need to start skimming.
Yep.
So I did some good skimming through the latter two books. I reread Fellowship a little bit. I watched the movies, right? And so I got into it. And so by the time I arrived at rehearsal, I was able to talk with the pros.
Of course.
But it's this odd balance of trying to honor the storytelling, the lore, the things about Lord of the Rings that people love, the things about the movies people love, the things about the book people love.
Yeah.
And also trying to put on a stage play.
Heard.
Right? That is safe, that is entertaining to those that have never touched Lord of the Rings in their life.
Yeah.
It's a huge undertaking and pretty much impossible. Factually impossible. And what we have is some amalgamation of trying to honor all those things.
Heard.
And I think we do a reasonably good job of doing that. If you are a purist, this may not be your thing. But if you love Lord of the Rings and it has a place in your heart, there's going to be something about this production that will bring you to tears.
If you're a purist, by now you got to know you will never be satisfied.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker got grumpy. And you know what? I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I'm here for it.
I don't care.
It's true. It's honest. It's human.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want to know about the show? What do you want to know about
what was the first of all, the actor musician of it all? Was that your first time doing that kind of performance?
It's my first time being an actor musician on stage. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. Sorry. It's not my first time being an actor musician on stage. When I was at the Marriott doing Beautiful under the incredible direction of Jess Fish, she's a legend. Our Carol played piano live on stage. Her Kate Davis, mastermind, fully throughout the entire show.
Yeah.
Almost entirely. And I also, as Barry Mann, had to play a little bit of piano. So I was playing some of the songs on stage, which is cool. And I would not consider myself a piano player, but being from a family of music teachers, and being a musical person, trumpet player, right? I knew my way around a keyboard to fake my way through it. So I was able to do that. So I did play instruments on stage for that. But other than that, especially with my own instrument, my trumpet, I've never played live on stage.
Yeah.
When I was on the tour of Jersey Boys, however, during Can't Take on the balcony, I did sometimes play in the trumpet that I was not supposed to be playing. And if you were Bob Gaudio, my friend Eric standing over there, he definitely heard me spurt out a couple wrong notes here and there, which was a lot of fun, but it was not mic'd. It was not intentional. Yeah, it was my first time doing that. And it was terrifying. I hadn't played consistently since high school or college. And so to brush off the instrument and go, all right, I got to play it every night on stage. And people will hear me when I mess up. Not if I mess up, when I mess up.
For sure.
Because you're not hiring a trumpet player, you're playing an actor who plays trumpet.
So are y'all doing just music rehearsals? Just amazing.
The first 2 weeks were all music rehearsals where we take out our instruments, sit around and go through the music and play. And it was wild. It was like I was in band class again.
Yeah.
The tough part about the show, and I have a lot of thoughts about this, so hopefully the people listening aren't the people employing me. We don't have a conductor. We had a music supervisor and a music director that were helping us to sound beautiful and clean and whatnot. But every night we're going off each other.
Hard.
Different people are giving different cues at different times. We are the pit orchestra.
Yeah.
We were in place of the pit orchestra, which had its slew of problems.
Gotcha.
But at the end of the day, once we did it, it was kind of incredible.
Yeah.
It's similar to once, right? But it's not like once where we're playing Irish folk songs.
For sure.
We are playing orchestral songs.
Yeah.
That are going through various tempo changes and key changes and odd musical modulations. And it's crazy, but we do it.
That's incredible.
There's a moment in the show in Act 2 where I slide across the stage, shoot some bow and arrow, right? Kill some orcs.
Yeah.
Run off the stage. I hand a bow to the stage manager. He gives me a trumpet. I play the trumpet. We switch it back. I sprint up an 11-foot ladder with the bow in my hand, shoot an orc off the balcony once I enter stage, come off of it, grab the trumpet, which has been hoisted up in a bucket.
Amazing.
Bring the trumpet on stage and then play. And it's just madness. It is madness.
That's crazy.
And honestly, if you're in the audience, you probably didn't see any of that.
Amazing. Even better. Even better. Damn, that is so cool. And you're playing an iconic role.
Yes.
You are Orlando Bloom.
Some may say. Some have said.
And was there any pressure with that?
One of the...
I can only imagine what your DMs are looking like nowadays.
Well, every single person, as soon as I say that I'm legless, the first question they ask, without fail. So, are you wearing a yellow wig?
There you go.
Are you wearing a blonde wig? What's the wig like? You're wearing a wig, right? No, I'm sorry, I'm not wearing a wig.
It's been so nice having you here. You know where the door is. No, I know that's not your choice.
Yeah, it's out of my control to begin with. Though I will say that my hair has grown a lot longer since I started this and they've asked me not to cut it.
Great.
So, and I have considered coming with a blonde streak or two, but I think I should stick to my natural hair color.
Bleach blonde.
Yeah.
What happened?
Again, we are not doing the movie version.
Of course.
And in the books, they don't actually say what Legolas's hair looks like. In fact, they say very little about what he looks like.
Take that, purists.
But it is a little alarming for people who know who that character is to see me without that wig. What's cool about the show is that it's an opportunity for us as actors and as storytellers and the creative team, right, to have a go at the story from a different angle.
Yeah. And
also with the lens that if we are hobbits, right, pretty unlikely you'll find a hobbit with long blonde hair.
Fair. Yeah.
I mean, that's maybe not necessarily true. We do have a few people in the cast that have long blonde hair, but
they're fictional creatures.
They're fictional creatures. And so one of the conversations we had at the beginning of the rehearsal process was like, why would your Hobbit choose to play Legolas, or why would your Hobbit choose to play Gandalf, or whatever it is, so like giving you kind of the artistic freedom to say like, I'm not the actor who played it in the movie, I'm me playing a Hobbit, playing a role, which gets a little meta, but it's fun like that. So there are definitely some nods that I give to Orlando Bloom. There's definitely some nods that me and my buddy Ian, who plays Gimli, we give to some of the things you see in the movie, because fan service sometimes is really nice.
Yep.
But it's been a fun ride, like, to find. And also what's cool about this production is because it's not on camera, and because the camera's not locked on one frame at one specific time, right? You're seeing the moments in between the lines. You're seeing the moments in between the epic moments, right? And so like you're seeing a more human version, or more Hobbit version of the show. And so like these characters come off a bit less epic and a bit more humane and grounded. And that's really cool to like find what's so human about these characters.
Yeah.
Legolas can be an asshole.
Yeah.
He's a little bit righteous. He's like daddy's favorite son until he's not. And like he's, wanting to prove that he's like regal and smart and can be a leader in the group until he gets put down by like Gimli, or, and how dare this little dwarf, insult me. So it's just like, there are fun things about that. Finding the friendship between those two, finding, how to work through prejudice and all that. So it's been cool. Our characters are severely underwritten, but obviously how are you going to get around that with a 3-hour epic? So
yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I'm grateful to be doing it. It's a cool show to be working on. It's unlike anything I've done before. And I'm excited to take it overseas.
That's amazing. Good for you.
Thank you.
And it all came from taking a local contract.
Got myself a vacation to New Zealand.
Did you know the New Zealand thing was happening when you took the contract?
There were rumors.
Okay.
It said in the breakdown, there is a possibility of an international leg of this tour. Your availability for that won't affect your casting in this.
That's amazing.
So it was only like 5 weeks into the rehearsal process that they were like, so we just want to tell you all, we are going to take you to Auckland, New Zealand. So, and everyone was like, yeah.
Amazing.
So it was an exciting moment. Yeah.
Damn. Well, good for you. I'm
Thank
very
you.
happy you got that.
I appreciate it.
I could talk about the nerd shit for hours.
We totally could.
I actually just interviewed a guest the other day for some more nerdy theater that, once again, keep an eye out on our Instagram, folks. But we were talking about nerd theater, and she was like, I don't know if you saw, but they just did Lord of the Rings in Chicago. And I was like, boy, did I, and boy, will you be thrilled with some news that's coming soon.
Yeah.
So her episode will be coming out later, but folks, just know that we did it.
Yeah.
We did it, y'all.
There's a lot to be said about it. And if you want to know more, reach out.
Yes. But anywho, regional theater, oh God. I feel like there is the big 3 of like reasons you're going to do a show.
Yes.
And it is 1, the money, 2, the role, if it is something that you really want to do, or having this role on your resume will open doors in terms of how you're perceived.
Yeah.
Interesting. Or the place, if it's a very prestigious theater with a particular team or whatever that you want to work with for certain reasons that will benefit you in the long run.
100%.
And I feel like those are the 3 considerations.
Yeah.
I think it is very rare to have all 3 ever.
It's impossible to have them.
Yes.
Sure. No. Is it possible? Yes, it is. And if you get that, you've struck gold. Congratulations.
Yes. Stay there for 20 years.
Stay there for 20 years. Wicked for 20 years.
Yeah.
I have a little list that I utilize that has 5 columns.
I don't know.
They are the money, right? They are the theater.
Yep.
The role, the experience, and the health weeks.
Yeah.
Right? Because as a union actor, I'm dependent on the amount of work that I do in order to get health insurance.
Exactly.
Which is huge. And I've been fortunate enough to insure myself health insurance for at least, another year or 6 months or whatever it is.
Do you know off the top of your head how many weeks it is?
Oh, God. They just changed it again like last year. So I think it is 15 weeks for 6 months of tier 1 health coverage.
Gotcha.
But it might be 12 weeks for tier 2.
Gotcha.
There used to be 3 tiers, and now there's 2. I mean, they just keep changing it.
Understood.
I think it might have changed for the better. Could be wrong with that. But if you get tier 1 coverage with Cigna through Actors Equity, it's pretty good.
Great.
Good bang for your buck. So those 5 things, and I assign each of those things a value based on where I'm at that point.
Yeah.
So for the last year, like the thing that had been most important to me was making sure I did something other than Jersey Boys. And I knew that because I had a lot of work with Jersey Boys or other regional gigs that I was doing, like health insurance was pretty okay for right now. So that had like the lowest score. Now, in a year from now, that might be the highest score because I might be, shit out of luck and needing a job.
Yeah.
But for me, the higher scores were like the theater, the credit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the show or the role.
Yeah.
Right. And now it has become more money. But basically, when I have two projects, like if I know I'm booked to do a project
Mm-hmm.
and my agent sends me something, I weigh those two things and I'll do a little checklist. It takes me 5 seconds, and I'll look at the score, and it'll be like 6-5 or 7-3.
Yeah.
And I'll know right then and there what I should choose. Should I turn down that audition? Should I take it? Whatever. Sometimes it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go, the score says this, but my gut tells me I really should be going in for that, you know? And you just you have to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm. I'm always one to say you got to trust the gut.
You got to trust the gut.
There is something, listen, nobody knows yourself better than you. And sometimes you may not even know why or how, but your body does, your mind does, the universe does. And it's all of those things are telling you that you got to do something for some reason. Mm-hmm. And it might not be apparent, but let me tell you, you will learn. You will soon learn why one way or another. And I just hope it's for the better way, you know? So trust your gut, folks. Yeah. Don't doubt it. That's a lesson that I learned later in life. And I wish I had known sooner. But now that I know, it's opening a lot of doors for me, let me tell you.
But it's something you refine over time, right?
Exactly.
Like,
yes.
And what your gut tells you when you first graduate college is different than what your gut's going to tell you 10 years later.
Yeah.
Because you know more. So, you know, trust your gut for where you're at. And
I have a decision that I need to make very soon, and my gut is telling me one thing so blaringly obvious, but my brain is trying to talk me out of it in so many different ways right now.
And, you know, like, this is a beautiful thing about life too. Like, I'm a terrible decision maker.
Yep.
I'm so indecisive, but like over time I've gotten better about just making a fucking decision.
Yeah.
And like, you will make a decision.
Exactly.
And if it ends up being the wrong one, you'll figure it out.
Truly.
So that for the next time you go, don't make that mistake again,
Yep.
right? So like, it's not life or death, unless it is. Hopefully it's not.
Yeah.
But it's typically not, and you learn from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Woof.
Woof.
Yeah, things are hard. But you know what? Once again, there's no rules.
There's no
rules in life, you know.
Actually, I was going to say another thing too, like, and that's perfect segue, is like every theater operates differently.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And so, you know, there are things where I've worked at, you know, say a handful of regional theaters this 1 year over the course of 2 years, and then I get booked at another place and I'm expecting those things.
Yeah.
And they're like, ooh, we don't do that. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, my agents will come back and be like, oh, actually, that's not a thing. And I'm like, what? But it is a thing elsewhere, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, things like having a car, right? Like oftentimes a regional theater will provide a shared car for us to use.
Yep.
Or, you know, maybe you have the lead role and they're willing to give you your own car or something like that. Oftentimes theaters will do a plus 10% on top of your pay for your agents. So their money isn't directly coming out of your paycheck, or it's being sent separately. So you don't have to pay them out of, you know, like Venmo or Zelle or whatever. And then other places are like, yeah, that's not a thing. Like in Chicago, they don't do the over 10%, right? And a lot of tours and New York stuff won't do that, right? And some places like Willer won't house you, right? Like, or certain places won't give you a gym membership. Whereas like the last 3 contracts he did, they always provided the gym. It just, it really depends. It also has a lot to do with the budget of that theater.
Totally.
It has a lot to do with the donor support, the patron support. Some, like the place I worked in Michigan, in Saugatuck, like some of the things they had were just because the local community members were like, I want to give this.
Yeah.
Right. That local gym was like, we love the theater. We want all of your actors to be able to come in here work for free.
Totally.
Because it looks good for us. When it's like young, attractive people walk in and like are, you know, working out in our space.
Yeah.
Things like that. To have the Jersey Boys walk in and buy pizza from our place. Like things, you know, so that's the other aspect. So it really just depends.
Yeah.
I would say a helpful thing that I found is if I get offered to do a show somewhere and I'm not quite sure, right? I'll talk to friends. And again, you talk to your people. Yeah. I'll see who in my friend group or who in my peripheral groups has worked at some place at this place and ask them, right? Like I got booked to do a show early next year in Florida. And I just looked at the Instagram of the theater and saw 2 of my friends had followed it. So I inquired. I was like, hey, have you worked here? Yes, I have. Oh my gosh, are you going to work there? Like, you know, and then I'll ask them a billion questions and you just kind of get the
exactly.
intel.
Yeah.
So
always reach out. Yeah.
We lean on each other.
Try and find as many people that have worked there, get the lay of the land.
Or like, is this a normal thing for them to say this? And then they may come back and say, oh no, when I was there, this, you know, and then that's fuel for you to either ask for something different or, you know, play hardball or say that's normal. Okay. Yeah, sure. All right. I'll accept it.
And like the thing about regional theaters, folks, is that they are everywhere, and everywhere has a drastically different way of living, you know?
Yes.
Especially if you've only lived in one climate, or you've only lived in the East Coast. Like the West Coast is very different, just culturally, you know? Like
you take a gig out in Colorado, you know, you best be ready for a different altitude, you know, for your lungs to be doing a different thing, working at a different level. You know, you're working on the water, you're working in a dry climate. Like what I worked out in Phoenix, you know, twice now in my career, and like it's dry. It's dry as hell out there. Yeah. You know, you just account for, or, you know, if you're there for a summer, it's going to be 115 degrees. Like you got to be hydrating at every second of the day. Yeah. I'll say one thing that's been really cool is working at the regional level has allowed me to foster a work ethic. Yeah. Physical work ethic. Understanding how to like train my body. Right. My first ever regional gig, I lived like a monk. I didn't go out. I didn't drink. I didn't do anything. I didn't talk to people. Like, you know, I was friendly. Yeah. But show finished, I was in bed. I was steaming in bed. Right. And like, I was eating so well. I was hydrating so well. Like, I was doing all the things. I was warming up every day. I was going to the gym, like, just like a madman. And and I'm so glad I did that because it laid the foundation of what I know I need to do to get my body in an optimal place. And as the years have gone on, especially if I'm doing a repeat role, like I now know I can gauge my body on the day and go, do I need this? Can I do this? Like how much more water? Right. And so I can be a little more lax, but when I know I need to get down to work and do these things, I can do them. But so, I mean, and this happens anywhere. It's a discovery process. So you kind of just figure out what your body needs to do.
You really do. When I went out for my first regional gig, it was in California. And so I was overhydrating. I was drinking so much water. I was steaming like 4 times a day. And I was just trying to take that all so seriously. It was also like daunting vocally for me at first before I really was in the meat of it. So I was like, I am going to take so much care of my body. Yeah. It is my temple. And then like we very quickly realized like this is a very small place. There's not a whole lot to do. All we have is each other and bars, and you got to find the dichotomy of how are we going to make this work.
You got to find the balance.
Truly. Even financially, like too, like a lot of these places are going to pay you what looks on paper to be a decent amount, but then you take into account that gas prices there are $2 higher per gallon than you are used to in life, you know? Right. And then you are driving even more. You have these vehicles that may not be as fuel efficient. Correct. Groceries might be different there, you know? Like cost of living is also way different. And you gotta...
Not to mention the fees that are coming out for your agent for taxes. Maybe you're trying to add money, you know, contribute money to your 401k, right? That the employer is able to match or whatever. Like there's lots of things coming out.
Also, if you're not working on a W-2, you're going to have to pay taxes. I mean, no matter what, you're going to have to pay taxes to that state. But if you're not working on a W-2, you got to keep track of what you are making and what they will take out of it eventually when you have to pay taxes, because it's going to seem like a survivable amount in the meantime. And then you're going to get those tax forms and you're going to realize that you're out $1,200 or whatever.
Or more,
know? Yeah, truly. So
I'm a part of a couple different guest entertainer groups that will perform on cruise ships, will perform around the country. And that's all independent contracting. Yeah. And so like, it's fun work. It's easy money, but you have to set money aside, or you just expect that you're going to owe a couple grand or more, you know, when next year comes. So there's definitely pros and cons to that kind of work. It's great. It's great part-time stuff. It's great in between gig stuff, but just know that like all that money that you're getting is not all yours.
Totally.
And you best be ready to get rid of
it. And that is a thing in life, folks. No matter what it says on that initial online form of what you are making, that is not going to be all the money you receive.
Correct.
And different states and different cities take out atrociously different amounts of taxes immediately as well. So it's a lot to consider. Once again, I do think this is something that you do learn as you go.
Like, you just learn it. Don't worry about it.
As much as we can tell you right here, I am not your accountant. You know, I have learned a lot. I'm still learning a lot, you know.
Just ask questions. Ask everyone, you know, things.
Also, just be cognizant of what you actually need to survive, you know. Be so sure of what you can and can't spend money on and what you can and can't go without.
Right.
Because you may tell yourself one thing and you may very quickly learn that you were not self-aware enough there.
Yeah. You know, listen, if you're someone who likes budgets and operates well with a budget, great. If you're someone that doesn't, and you might need to learn how. Yep. If you're someone that already has some sort of side gig or side hustle, right? Bolster that up. If you have the resources or the connections to have a part-time remote kind of job, which I'm desperately looking for. And if you know anyone hiring, please let me know.
Iron grip, folks.
Yeah, iron
grip.
So these are things you'll find out and figure out how to do, but or a family business that you're able to help out with or do while you're home or something like that,
Or something that you can pick up there, Listen, I have on my resume under special skills, I have lawn mowing because
good for you.
I love it.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite activities that I am so deprived of in the city.
Yeah.
I am good at it. That is something I pride myself in. And if any regional theater needs some groundskeeping while I'm there, sign me the fuck up. Are you joking? Yes,
good.
please. Literally.
That's
God,
wonderful.
Truly. Yeah.
So I'm also a dialect coach on the side as
Oh my
well.
God, amazing.
And so like something I'll do is when I'll reach out to a theater or even I'll express to my agents, hey, why don't you drop this line as well? I'll say like, hey, I'm also willing to dialect coach your production, right? If cast, I'm happy to offer my services in that department or function as dialect captain or something like that. Which, in the past has like, I've had some theaters that have gone, yeah, sure, we'll add another X amount of money onto your weekly paycheck if you dialect coach our show.
Yeah.
Right. Or stuff like that. And so, or while I'm rehearsing or doing a show, I'm able to take private clients on the side and do like a Zoom session.
Totally.
And so, yeah, you find the things that you're kind of able to do. Only problem with dialect coaching too is like it's just as difficult to become a dialect coach as it is to become an actor.
Truly,
so
that's
it's not like any more steady than the other thing I'm doing.
Exactly, but like there's things right now like intimacy coordination that everyone is starting to adopt too, where like you can get certified in that, and if you can do that and leverage that in your contract or whatever, amazing. Like get your bag, find whatever little niches you can to get that extra money. If it's not gonna overstress you in the time, then I say do it. Why the hell not?
We have some friends that have worked regionally a ton and they're a husband and wife. And so like oftentimes they'll try to like find gigs together, which is really difficult, but really wonderful when they do. And oftentimes some of the places they're working, the base paycheck might not be enough and there's only so far that theater can negotiate to. Something that they'll do is Katie, my friend, she'll say like, hey, I'll be your dance captain, right? And then he'll be like, I'll be assistant or fight captain or something like that. Yeah. Or in whatever capacity to bolster up their paycheck to make it worthwhile for them to do it. Yeah. Because they're getting to do it together and they're getting a decent enough amount of money that it's worth it. Will they have to work a little bit harder? Sure. Yeah. But, if you're able to if you treat the theater like their business partner as opposed to like a mean bully, which sometimes they can be.
Oh, of course.
Sometimes you might fare better.
You got to take your risks in whatever way. Listen, capitalism is everywhere. The hierarchy of the world is everywhere. But like, I don't know. If you want it, try and get it,
Can't hurt to ask.
Be careful trying to get it, but like it never hurts to ask.
Yes.
For the most part. And for those rare that it does hurt to ask, you probably won't know until it happens. And then not to make that mistake again. But to each their own, you got to do what you got to do. I feel like we kind of encapsulated that.
Yeah.
The thing is that is such a diverse kind of experience, no matter where you go, that there are so many things that are going to happen. But once again, like reach out to folks that that have worked at certain places because they can give you like a better insight into the life there in the world.
Or even the show. Like I've had so many people over the years reach out and being like, hey, I know you did the Jersey Boys thing. I got cast to do this. Can you explain to me XYZ? Or like, how did you do this? Or how did you get through this? Or, vocal health or things like that. And sometimes people are more willing to share some of their secrets than others. Now that I'm kind of out of the woods a little bit with Jersey Boys, I'm so willing to share that kind of intel. And even when I was in it, I was so willing to share. But
totally,
it just can't hurt to ask.
Yeah,
sometimes there's unique and specific things you won't be able to find out until you do it, or someone that has done it.
Totally. Listen, reach out to your peers. They're your peers for a reason. This is a community. At the end of the day, this is a community. And there are people that are going to gatekeep things and then not to go to them. There are at least 10 other people who will give you that information. And that's just how it is. It's a bunch of humans all trying for the same thing. And people value that in different ways. And, I'm one to think that I have started to surround myself by the right people where we are all in this together. We are all supporting each other. Are we going out for the same roles? Yes. Are we proud of each other? Yes.
Yeah. And there will be situations, there are people where paying for that information is worth it and valuable.
Oh, 100%.
There's so many people, I'm sure people you've had on your podcast, that do incredible services or teach or
totally
have cool things they offer that you pay for, but you get some pretty awesome stuff out of it.
That's exactly right.
So don't be afraid to shell out a little bit, to invest in yourself, right? As long as it's not an absurd amount of money or you feel like the payoff is worth it. But those coaches, those teachers, those instructors, some of those programs that teach you, if you are someone that doesn't know how to like, build your brand or your package or whatever, and you're starting from ground zero and maybe didn't get that training in college, like then there are people that do that beautifully, and it's worth paying that extra couple $100 to do that. So
also support your friends, y'all. We're all out here trying to get our side gigs going. Like have your friend make your website, like have your friend manage your social media or whatever you need to do. Like get out there and support each other. Everyone hug each other, support each other for the love of God. Yeah. I mean, you got anything else? I'm feeling good. Listen, you can talk for hours.
I could talk for
Everything
hours.
that I've learned about you is that you could talk about this stuff for hours.
I know. So you're probably best just telling me to shut up.
I might be. Listen, we've been doing this for almost an hour and a half, believe it or not.
Yeah. Just be nice, listen to each other.
Yeah.
Ask for what you need, advocate for yourself, and enjoy.
There you go, folks. Listen, we are rooting for you. We are your biggest supporters, and you can be our biggest supporters by finding us on Patreon. Yes, folks, that is patreon.com/BA2Broadway. Of course, your general reminder, we are not gatekeeping any vital information on there. That is just for silly bonus content, silly stories. Also, y'all may have noticed now that there may be ads running in these episodes. We do have ad-free episodes over there if you are completely against fast forwarding, I guess. So if that's something that you really want, get on over there. I'll have our entire catalog uploaded on there pretty soon, hopefully. Also, of course, our principal tier Patreon members get to choose the shows that Danny and I talk about every Wednesday on In the Spotlight. So if there's something you've been dying to hear us talk about and we just haven't gotten there yet, then let us know and we will do it. We are truly doing anything and everything that you ask for. Folks, as always, you can find us on most social media platforms at BA2Broadway. Justin, where can folks find you if you want to be found?
Sure, yeah. You can find me on Instagram at Justin Albinder. You can also find my website, www.justinalbinder.com.
Amazing.
For any dialect coaching needs or just want to reach out and say hey.
Amazing. Justin, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so glad I could. Thank you for having me.
Absolute delight.
Yeah.
You are welcome back anytime. I'm sure you have many more things to talk about. And until next time, folks, bye.
Take care.
From BA to Broadway is created, produced, and edited by Brennan Stefanik, music by Dylan Kaufman, and cover art by Jordan Vongsithi.